You're now tuned in to the Soulful Stir with Tash and Symoné.
We are live. Hey y'all.
We are back. It's another Sunday.
Yes, happy Sunday. Welcome to another episode of the Soulful Stir. I'm Symoné.
And I'm Tash.
Well, any updates since our last
Nope.
episode?
Just living. I'm
Nope.
still here. As the old folks say, I'm still in the land of the living.
Working
I'm
9
still
to
in
5.
the number.
Working 9 to 5. Doing all the things. Yeah, I don't have any updates either. Just been working on a few projects and letting some things unfold, and starting a new position. I'm very grateful. So that's all I can say since the last episode. So we talked a little bit about how we wanted this flow show to go for this episode. And at some point, we have spoken about our past experiences in our childhood, and specifically reflecting on the things that we took for granted as children, or things that may have not made sense in that moment that absolutely make sense now.
Well, I don't think
The inconveniences.
I don't think I took stuff
that
for,
we're not
well,
so
I did take some
inconvenient.
stuff for granted. But I don't really think I think a lot of my problem was I had a lot of privilege, and I really thought that was normal. Like I just thought everybody lived the way I lived. I didn't know that I was living like the way I was living once I became an adult. People was going to be like, oh, really? Like, that's how it was for you? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, that's definitely a testament to what I mentioned last episode, that we just don't know how people are living in their homes and what our lives look like. And I will use a conversation that I had with someone recently. For example, she grew up in a household where her dad was a stay-at-home dad, and I thought it was so interesting because she shared with me that she didn't realize that that was not the norm until she got older and started to have more conversations and, develop friendships with people whose lives were set up differently, right? Where their dad was the one who went to work, but her mom was the one who went to work, and her dad handled everything at home. But she's like, her dad did everything. He was the primary parent. He was the one that stayed home with the kids and made sure that dinner was taken care of, the house was clean, things got fixed. So it worked as a system. And I think that's one of the things that we tend to not think about when we think about familial structures and the way that households work, and also in alignment with the level of privilege that we may have and how we experience life inside of our homes. And just the fact that it is so different than what other people experience.
yeah.
I think about too, like when you say that, it makes me think about when we think about familiar structures, the fact that I grew up in a single parent household. My mom's was the primary parent. And I looked at my friends who had their parents in the house with them. Their parents were married. And I just thought that was like the best thing. And I so badly wanted that for myself. Recently, my sister asked me about a friend of mine from elementary school. She said, how is such and such doing? Have you talked to her? Like, because we were really good friends. We met when we were like in second or third, maybe fourth grade, right? Somewhere in there. Elementary school. She was a good friend of mine, and we lost touch over the years. But her parents were married. She had siblings, and they just lived like, what seemed like a fairy tale life to me as a child. But looking back on it as an adult, they had a lot of drama going on in their household, and her parents actually did not get along with each other. That was really interesting. It's interesting to reflect on that as an adult and be like, that's something that you thought was a one up, like, and it really wasn't.
Well, I think my situation is a little different. I feel like I used to grow up and I felt like I was living in the ghetto. Like, I knew I wasn't living physically in the ghetto, but like, I'm not gonna say I thought I had a ghetto household, but I just thought we was like, like, good times. I just felt like we were scratching and surviving. And come to find out, we were not. And that was so funny because the things that I was afforded that I thought were like natural, like second nature, that I had a problem with, I realized that we're super privileged. Like, for example, I was just talking about on my Instagram story the other day, like, I don't like when people automatically assume, like, people be like, oh, I feel so bad for Capricorns. Your birthday is around Christmas and everybody's broke and people forget your birthday. And I'm like, baby girl, ain't nobody ever forgot my birthday. Like, my mom and them did they big one. Like, I would get gifts on Christmas and then 4 days later, it will be a whole nother round of gifts. And that was all my life. Like, that wasn't just when I was a kid. That wasn't, when my parents got a little bit of money. That was all my life. And even to that point, somebody was like taking it further and they was like, you knew you was rich growing up if you got an allowance. And I was like, allowance ain't shit. And they was like, girl, nobody got allowance. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I got allowance. Like, I literally was at one point getting like $50 a week allowance, like dead ass, like in the 90s. I remember my mama alone used to pay me one of the things on my list of chores to do because all of my chores had like different dollar amounts assigned to them. And I remember being in like 8th or 9th grade, and my brother was younger, but he had to wear like uniforms to school. And one of the things that I had to do, I would get $20 a week just to iron my brother's uniforms on Sunday night to make sure he had clothes for the week, so my mama wouldn't have to do it. But she paid me every Friday in cash. Like,
must be nice.
And that's what everybody's like, girl, you got allowance? And then when I told them how much I got, they was like, my mama wouldn't give me $50 a month, let alone a week. I was like, and when I was growing up, I felt like my parents was being cheap as hell. I was like, how dare you only give me $50? And so now it makes sense of why I'm the kind of person I am now, because I didn't realize that this is how I was raised. Like, when I reflect on the stuff that I was taught inherently, like, my grandmother did not work. Well, she did start working when I got older, but my grandmother, every Friday, like clockwork, she had a standing hair appointment. And I was laughing and telling somebody that the other day, because they was like, well, my grandmama did too, because, she used to usher at church. My grandmama wasn't no religious woman. My grandmama didn't go to church, okay? My grandmama got her hair done every Friday so she could look fly when her sisters came over to the house to talk shit about my granddaddy on Saturday night. You know what I'm saying? Because I never saw my grandma. My grandmama never smoked cigarettes or anything until her sisters came over, and she would pull a fucking box of Misty Lights out the back of the refrigerator, and her Jack Daniel Mountain Cooler wine coolers, her Mountain Sipper wine coolers, whatever they was called. And her sisters, or they would drink Kahlua and cream. But my grandmother, like I said, I knew her to work a little bit, but my grandfather worked and took care of stuff. Like, I never knew, you know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up with my grandmama using Chanel perfume and stuff. Like, I didn't get older and just figure out that Chanel was luxury. This is how I was raised. Like, my grandmama used to let me play in her Chanel No. 5. Like, when I wanted to play dress up, I was allowed to play with that. Like, that was a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was 4 years old wearing jupe because that's what my grandmother had, and that's what I was allowed to play with. Like, I ain't have a Skin So Soft grandmama. I had we going to Hudson's and buying up the fashion fair Chanel counter grandma. You know what I'm saying?
We stayed in Hudson's too.
I was one of those kids, and I didn't realize that wasn't everybody else's lifestyle until I got older. Like, even I was telling that story the other day on my Instagram. Like, when I got my first car, my granddad was like, I don't want you to have a used car. I had a brand new car. Like, I would have to buy a car. My very first car that I bought in 2005 was a 2006 Chevrolet. He did not play with you having a used car, especially as a woman. He did not play that. He don't play no used cars, none of that. You got to get that mug straight off the lot. I got to know that you the first driver, because I need to know that if it's having problems, you caused them. And that was how I was raised. So, like, my Acura I bought used, and I felt so poor. I was like, damn, I gotta buy a used car because I was buying my first car myself. Like, every car I had before that, my granddad helped me buy, and it had to be brand new. So I didn't realize that I was growing up privileged until I grew up and started having kids and started helping raise my nieces and nephews. And I was like, wow, because I was trying to give them the lifestyle that I had growing up. And then I was like, damn, this is expensive. But to me, I thought my parents like was being cheap. Like, I really did. I didn't think nothing of it. Like,
yeah, I think that I have a unique proximity to privilege. I definitely feel like my parents both grew up with a southern style upbringing. My dad, Caribbean upbringing, both raised by their grandparents, right? So you have this foundational backing. But those grandparents and my parents, they always worked, and they always made sure that we didn't go without. So there were parts of my childhood where we struggled financially a bit, and we always made it through, but we never went hungry. We always had the best of things. The things that we asked for Christmas, we always got. And so that's a level of privilege that, like, not a lot of kids will look back and be like, you know what, or not a lot of adults will look back and say, you know what, we were actually okay. Even though, we had our struggles. My mom, my parents, they had their struggles growing up. But something I was thinking about in particular, and the fact of, like, us not realizing just how privileged we are. I sit and think about the fact that when I got a little older and returned to Jamaica after a long period of not being there, my experience was such a culture shock that I called home crying on the beach. Yeah. I was on the beach in Jamaica in my bathing suit, weeping because I wanted to come home. Yeah. And my mom was like, do you know where you're at right now? Like, you're in Jamaica and people would, like, love to be where you are. Like, just go and enjoy yourself. And it was just an overwhelming experience for me. But when I returned after that, I started looking at things with more of a fine microscope and realizing that, yeah, you are privileged, because the value of $1 looks different here. Yeah. And even though my parents always instilled that in me, it's different when you get to see it firsthand and children walk up to you with no shoes on. Not because they don't have the latest Jordans, but because they simply cannot afford a pair of shoes, or their parents cannot afford it because it's just not in the budget. That's one side of it. And also assessing where my dad was raised. My dad was raised in a 1-bedroom hut in Jamaica, where his great grandparents bought a piece of land that essentially is like a small compound. Mm-hmm. And they would just build up, like, each family or person will build up their own little hut that's enough for them to have shelter. And he grew up in a 1-bedroom hut with his sister and his grandmother and grandfather. And it's a small little, it's tiny, small kitchen, no indoor bathroom or shower. You had to shower outside in a community outhouse. So being exposed to that is like, girl, this is so different than how you live in America. But the other side of that is like growing up in the hood in America, and also in Granny's house, who was from the South, and they believe that if it wasn't broke, don't fix it.
Well, so that's where I was about to say, I think a lot of people, for me, being out of touch with your amount of privilege comes in, because I'll say all of this, and to this day, my granddaddy had money. Like, we were left with inheritances. Like, when my grandfather passed away, he had money put up for all of his children, all of his grandchildren. And I don't mean like, oh, here go a few $100, blah, blah, blah. I mean, these were thousands of dollars that all of us received in inheritance that he was intentional about leaving behind. But he always remained his residence on Grand River, Illinois, baby. My granddaddy was not moving up out of that house. My granddaddy bought that house in 1969 when my daddy was 3 years old and was not gonna move out of there. Okay, my granddaddy had no mortgage on that house in forever. And if you're familiar with Detroit and everything in Detroit, Grand River, Illinois ain't Bloomfield Hills, baby. It is not none of that. Okay, I remember growing up, it was crack houses on the next block from where I grew up. So in my mind, you know, it was like we don't have nothing that other people have because we was living in the hood, but at the same time we were in the hood, but we in our house we had everything. And I think that goes back to a point that I made on the last episode about being honest with your partner about financial trauma and things like that, and financial expectations sets the tone for your relationship. Because I remember right before I had my son, me and his dad were like looking for places to live, and he was like, oh, I like this apartment, and I kept saying, you know, Michael, I can't live there. There's no washer and dryer in there. And he was like, what do that got to do with anything? And I had to realize that when we had Royce, I was 33. In 33 years of living, I had never used a laundromat before. We've always had a washer and dryer in our home. I've always lived in a place there was a washer and dryer. When I went to college, I never used the washer and drying facilities on campus. I had the privilege and the opportunity to literally pack up my laundry, drop it off at my mother's house on a Thursday or a Friday, her wash my clothes for me, and I can pick them up on Sunday along with a plate of Sunday dinner and go back down to campus. And when I moved out of campus, when I had an apartment, I had a washer and dryer in it. From that place, I moved back home to my mom and stepdad's house. And naturally, we had a washer and dryer in there. And then I bought my first house. I moved out and bought my first house. So naturally, I had a washer and dryer. One of my my housewarming gifts to me from my grandfather was washer and dryer, all kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? He paid for my brand new AC unit, washer and dryer, all kind of stuff for me to move into my house. So I've never lived without a washer and dryer in my house. I don't know what that's like. And people, the way I see people move and go to a laundromat like it's second nature, that really, not trying to be funny, but it amazes me, because to me, when I see that, I see burden. Like when I go look at apartments, I won't even move into an apartment that has a shared laundry facility on, like how they'll be like, oh, well, we got laundry downstairs on the first floor. I need that in my unit. I like the freedom of being butt naked, walk around my house, putting my clothes in the washing machine, washing clothes while I'm in the shower. I don't want to have to get fully dressed to go get my clothes out of the washing machine. If I'm taking off my clothes, I want to be able to wake up and say, oh, I want to wear this shirt later on tonight when I go out. I want to be able to throw it in the washing machine right quick at the house, throw it in the dryer, and not have to take it to a location to do that. And I didn't realize how privileged that sounded until Michael was like, you've never washed at a washer? I was like, never. He's like, not at a laundromat? I was like, I might have been there with like cousins and aunts and stuff, but me needing like as a necessity to wash my clothes somewhere, no, we've always had one at home.
That's so interesting, because I wrote that down. I wrote this specific thing down about washing clothes. I don't necessarily mind going to a laundry facility, a laundromat. I think it's actually kind of cool. It gives me a breakaway from like my everyday routine. We've always had a washing machine in our house, but there were times where things broke and we might have had to get a new one. When I lived with my grandmother, we did not have a dryer for an extended amount of time. And there were also points where we may have had a dryer, but maybe that dryer wasn't equipped enough to handle large loads like our comforters, things like that. We would take those to the laundromat. So I kind of have this mixed balance and way of growing up where my grandmother taught me how to wash clothes by hands with a washing board, because we had those moments where there was no washing machine in the house. The washing machine was broken. We had to wait on the people like to come in.
But I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it feels nappa. Yeah, we would have that soap, and if you know, you know. But I think that this is so cool.
So that tall. I have all of that stuff, and I still have those skills now, because it's funny, because once we had Royce, when he would mess up his clothes as a baby, I would do that. I would scrub it, and Michael would be like, I can't believe you doing that. Not miss. I don't go to the laundromat. I'm taking care of myself and I want it done, but I just I think it's a germaphobe in me too, that I'm not using no public washer and dryer to put my damn clothes in it.
Yeah, that's one thing to think about. And then also the fact that some people, they will drop their clothes off and the people that work there will wash them and dry them for a fee. We never did that because we don't trust people. Like, if we were there washing our clothes, definitely staying there and washing them and drying them while like we're staying at the laundromat. Maybe we're in the car for a point in time, but no, we're not just leaving our clothes there. That's not what we're doing. But I think it's so cool to have that upbringing where I feel like I've lived between like two different worlds of, yes, I know how to wash clothes by hand. I know what to do. I know how to go outside and hang clothes. And I also think that there is this underlying theme and this underlying lesson of patience that comes with that, because you had to wait. Like, your clothes are not going to be instantly dry, and you also had to plan and prepare. So don't think that you about to jump into that jean jacket outfit when you know that it has to be washed, and if the washing machine is down, you got to wash that sucker by hand, and then you got to make sure it's wrung out, and you got to take it outside and put it on a clothesline. And I hope that it's summertime.
I was about to say, like, I know how to do all that, like, even when it comes to like stuff in the house, like I know how to do all that, but also it's weird because my grandparents taught me all of that stuff, but I was also taught from the same person. Like, my grandmama didn't play that. We cleaned up all the time, but I also saw her pay housekeepers. Like, my grandmother would pay for people to come, and I'd be like, hold on, you just had us clean this, but she was teaching us skills. Like, I know how to do all that stuff. Like, I could get in here and bust the whole place down, bleach it, baseboards, all that stuff. Am I going to? Absolutely not. I make too much money for that. I'm gonna pay somebody to do it. Like, even when it comes to basic stuff, I can boil rice with my eyes closed. Do I want to sit there and keep going in the kitchen and making sure my water levels is good? No, I'm gonna throw that thing in a rice cooker and we gonna keep it moving. Like, I think a lot of that we were learned. Yes, it's a lot of good lessons in it, but I think a lot of that was because they didn't have other stuff. And now, in terms of convenience and stuff, it just makes it easier. You know, like, I just think about, I tell people all the time, it's so much easier, like employers, to make you work from home. It's a lot of time we waste in processes of all of that other stuff. Like you were saying, think about it. You got to pack up your clothes. You got to get it in the car. You got to drive it to the laundromat. You got to wash. You got to sit there and do all of that. When I'm doing all that at home, I can throw the stuff in the washing machine. I can take a nap. I can work. I can clean up. I can go run errands. I don't have to sit at a laundromat for an hour and a half until my things are done.
Steal your stuff.
Yes, and we've learned, back then life was different. Now we know time is of the essence. People, I don't have 50 years to be washing clothes. I might die tomorrow. I need to get this shit done so I can put these clothes on and go do what I got to do. Like, and that is a gift and a curse. You know what I'm saying? Because I think in a lot of times we do need to slow down, because sometimes we keep trying to like multitask and other stuff instead of actually resting in the beauty of what we're doing in that moment.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because it made me think about this really dope facilitator that I had for my fellowship last year. And she spoke about the fact that time poverty is a thing. Yes. And people don't think about that, because if you are a person who is privileged enough to have grown up with housekeepers, to have grown up with chefs, to have grown up with people who you pay to make your life much easier, so that you don't have to think about, how am I going to get all of these things done in a day, then you have more time on your hands to be able to contribute to the areas of life that truly matter to you. Yes. And also, more importantly, you have time to contribute to the opportunities that you want to excel in your career, the ways that you want to grow, and even with your family also. Yes. Because if you don't have to spend time doing these household chores or what have you, yes, then you have that. In that conversation with her, we were talking about the advancements of AI and how there is a lot, we talked about that too in the past episode, a lot around the issues that are coming with the advancements of AI. But on the other hand, her bringing up, time poverty, and the fact that that's a thing, and the fact that some people are more privileged in that area, and we don't think about that on a granular perspective. That was real interesting to me, and it made me think about things with a different lens, in terms of the future and how things are going, but also the value of our time and how we're using it. So that's what you just made me think about when you're like, yeah, I can do all these things and I don't have to worry about my things being stolen, or even taking that time to drive back and forth to the laundromat, load and unload your clothes, and doing all this. Like, that's time.
And I talk about that all the time. So we used to argue about that when Royce was little. Like, and not argue so much so, but like, I'll be like, Michael, I'm tired. Can you get him? Blah, blah, blah. He like, you ain't did nothing all day. I'm like, what you mean? He like, I have to go to work. You know what I'm saying? I have to drive to work for this amount of time. I have to stand on my feet and work. And in hindsight, I was probably an asshole when I said it, but I don't take away what I said, because I meant what I said. Because everybody know I talk about it on this podcast. I talk about it on my social media. In life, I think you're going to pay on the front end or the back end. You either going to do the work early and relax late, or you're going to do the work late because you relaxed early. And so I would always argue with him, and I would be like, I feel like you're jealous of me, or you hate me, because when you were able to live your life and be 20 and be popping, I was in a fucking law library crying every night, studying my ass off so I could have this career where I make money and I ain't got to do shit. I set myself up for this cushion. So he looks at it like, you don't understand what other people got to go through, because you go in the office when you want to. You do this when you want to. And your check don't ever depend on how much you work by virtue of what you do. But that's because I set myself up for that. You see what I'm saying? And maybe it was because of the upbringing that I had. I realized that if I work and bust my ass on the front end, I'll have all the money on the back and I can relax, because I saw that from my parents and my grandparents. You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw my granddaddy work. But when he retired, baby, my granddaddy had 80-inch plasma TVs in the basement. He was on cruises for 3 weeks at a time. So he could live. You see what I'm saying? Like, he worked so he could live. And I look at myself like that. Like, sometimes I have friends that I grew up with, from childhood up to now, and we're in two different places in life, and we don't converse or hang out as much as we used to, because financially they're not in a position I'm at. They don't have the abundance of time that I have, or the freedom of time that I have, because of by virtue of how my life was. Even when I had Royce, like, I had a toddler, he was hanging on the hip, but mama had enough money for us to just ride. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to wait for a babysitter. I didn't have to say, well, can I take off work to spend time with my son? I could literally wake up in the morning and be like, you know what? He ain't going to school today. I'm going to take him to the zoo, because I could do that. You know what I'm saying? And that it was different, because I had friends that had kids that were trying to do the same things, but they couldn't. So it was like, well, could y'all wait for us to go to the zoo? And I don't play that. I ain't waiting to have experiences because other people ain't ready. Yeah. And so that's kind of my mom a big issue. And it's been a big issue because people are looking at me like I'm just kind of out floating and doing my thing. But I worked for this. I paid for this. Like, people don't know the struggle of going through depression and anxiety and feeling entire imposter syndrome for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I went to law school, and even with that being said, there was a bit of racial issues, because I went to law school. I went to pretty much a majority white law school. I get there and I'm looking at myself like I'm a black girl from Detroit. Like, these people are different from me. And I remember sitting in a conference, and people were talking about traveling out of the country. And I was telling people, I'm like, by the time I went to law school, I was well traveled. I had been to Europe several times and done all these things. I was traveling back and forth to Europe in law school, and people were flabbergasted. Like, I met, people that I would have thought, had privileged lifestyles, because, by virtue of just them being white. And when I would talk to them, they had never left Alabama. And I'm like, huh? And they're like, you've been out of the country? You've been to these places? Like, they couldn't even understand how I was able to financially afford going to travel out of the country when I was in law school, because you can't work in law school. But once again, I worked on the front end, so on the back end, I could chill. I had a whole house with a tenant in it. You know what I'm saying? I had income streams that didn't require me to work a W-2 job while I was in law school that afforded me the life I did, but I set myself up for that.
And I think that having a backing that is rooted in discipline is so beneficial to fast forward and look at our lives as they are now, because I absolutely agree with you. in life, if you want to be somebody and you want to go somewhere,
you better wake up and pay attention.
But seriously, there's going to be some level of sacrifice no matter how you look at it in any situation, whether we're talking about advancing in your career or advancing in your relationship, friendships, whatever. Like, there's going to be some level of sacrifice, some level of compromise, right? And when it comes to us really expanding on our careers and doing the things that we desire to do in life, yes, there have been plenty of nights where I had tears and I'm just like, why would I, like, what was I thinking? Why would I do this? There have been plenty of moments, even in undergrad, I remember like just thinking I should just drop out because it was just so taxing. And then you add on the fact that I was a part of other organizations and had responsibilities in those organizations where I'm the VP, I'm the president, I had a leadership position in the MPHC. It's a lot like to consider. And then also on top of that, make sure that you are excelling in what you came to school for in the first place. That's a lot. But I look back on it now, and as someone that's actively working through a little bit of imposter syndrome, I was talking to my therapist and she's like, it's not like you woke up and these things just started happening for you. She said, you've been planting these seeds for a long time. But I never thought of a situation how you and Mike's situation is set up where it's like, oh, well, I got to do all of this. And, you have the luxury. Well, yeah, I have that now, but that wasn't the case a few years ago when I was up pulling all-nighters and crying.
We often talk about when I was in law school, he was like, I was living in Illinois, I was doing this, he was traveling, doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, that's the dynamic.
That's the trade. Yeah.
Yes, and I think it comes off, I will say it kind of comes off bad because I'm very unapologetic about it. Like, I bust my ass to get here. Everybody can't say that they're doing what they said they were going to do as a child. At 11 years old, I said I want to be an attorney, and I did not stop until that's what I became. So yes, I am going to absolutely pop my shit about it, and I'm going to bask in the glory. When I get to wake up and stay at home, and I know that I'm going to get paid regardless, I'm going to bask in that. Like,
so tying that into into our childhood, like growing up, and having these very unique experiences where, I, again, feel like I've lived in between two different worlds. I feel like it made me more disciplined.
Yes.
To be someone who has traveled and saw how life was so different, to have a whole nother culture that's a part of me and seeing how they live so differently there. And I was living so differently here.
Yeah.
It really ingrained a high level of discipline in me, even down to just how my grandmother was. Like, she was very, very strategic, stricter about her money. Granny had bread. And honestly, my dad's mom too. Like, they were very hardworking women.
My grandfather taught me everything about investments, annuities, all of that stuff. And my granddad never graduated from high school. I don't think he ever made it to high school. If I'm not mistaken, my grandfather, when I finally went to law school, he finally admitted to me, like, he dropped out of school in like 8th or 9th grade. Yeah. But he was the most financially sound person I ever met. But to that point, it was because he had experienced poverty. His parents weren't home when he grew up. He had to go push carts at a grocery store to feed him and his older siblings. My grandfather was the baby, and he had to feed him and his older siblings. So he knew the privilege he did not have. So he purposely said that when he had his kids and grandkids, he wanted us to not have to struggle like he did growing up. And so I think because he lavished us in this life of luxury, but he did it in his own way of still keeping us grounded, because he kept us in the hood. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We had nice cars. I remember he bought my uncle a 5.0 Mustang back in the 90s. My uncle was probably like 20 years old. Dope boy car. My granddaddy bought it because that's what my uncle wanted. But we had a whole fence set up where that shit was locked in the gate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, my granddaddy kept us in the hood to keep us grounded, but we still had money. And I think that's why I'm the type of person I am now, because I can honestly say I ain't never been in a situation where I didn't really have it or didn't have a place to go get it from. And I'm fearful of what that would look like. That's why I didn't start having kids early. I didn't have a lot of kids when I did start having kids, because I wanted to be financially sound. Like, I wanted my kids to experience the kind of life I had, and I didn't have to struggle. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that felt
likewise.
Like. So,
I mean, there are other layers. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
There are other layers to my stance on children, and I've shared a little bit thus far in earlier episodes, but I also want to just highlight that I feel my experience growing up where, you know, there was some struggle, but we also never went without. It bred a high level of creativity for me, because I do think that discipline also requires some level of creativity, right?
Absolutely.
Because you have to be strategic sometimes about how you're going to get something done, because maybe things are not working out the way that you thought they were going to, or maybe you got that no that you thought was going to be a yes. And so how can you turn that no into a yes? Or how are you going to pivot? What does the pivot look like? How are you going to get it done? That's how my mind has always been wired, even since I was like a little girl. Super creative since I was a kid, not in just a way of creating art and coming up with ideas, but being someone that was just like, I'm going to get this done and I'm going to figure out how to do this because I know that this is possible. And again, that goes into just having a unique experience, and what my experience is living, or rather my living experience has been like thus far.
I always like to tell people I'm a spoiled hustler. Like, can I get what I want?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think what never made me go back and ask for, or to force myself to get, like we talked about in the episode, my granddad would call me and be like, hey, you got money? I'd be like, yeah, I'm straight. He would be like, no, you're not. You don't got enough money. And that would bother me, because I looked at it like, all the stories I heard about my granddaddy struggling to provide for us, like when he was a kid, just to provide for his family and everybody else so we could have so much stuff. In my mind, and I know a lot of this is a sick, twisted Capricorn stuff, but I felt like if I ask people for money, or if I go home and I don't take care of myself, I'm a failure. And literally, a lot of my hard work came from my grandfather trying to tell me not to get a job. He was like, I'm taking care of you. You got money. You don't have to work. And I was like, but I want my own money, because I don't want to feel like I'm dependent on nobody else. And so, like, it would kind of be insulting for him to be like, I'm about to go put some money in your account. And I'm like, I told you I'm getting paid tomorrow, because I didn't want people, especially the people that raised me, I wanted them to feel like I was getting it on my own, and I didn't have to. And that was so weird, because that goes back to tying into, I didn't realize that I was privileged as a kid, but even though once I got older I realized it was kind of like, but I was also raised in a different era of, you know, it was exciting to get out and get your own money. You know what I'm saying? Nowadays, these kids don't want to. But I was talking to somebody about that when we were talking about comparing our nieces and nephews, me and my friends, and we were like, when we turned 17, 18, we wanted jobs. We wanted our own apartments. We wanted to get the hell out of our parents' house. Right. These kids now don't want to do nothing but stay at home.
That is true. And then, speaking of that, where are the kids? I feel like I mentioned this too, but where are the kids that used to cut grass for $25?
Why shovel snow, cut grass.
Why are y'all still at home?
Like teenagers, I used to love to babysit people's kids. My mom and them used to have card parties and stuff, and I had a going rate. This is how much it's gonna cost if you want to bring your kids. Yeah, and they could sit up here in the room with me, but I was charging you. This ain't no
I
free
need that
service.
cheese. I need that cheese.
Absolutely. My mom and them allowed it, because this ain't no damn free daycare. You is not about to bring your children over here and think I'm about to be watching them all night. You gonna have to cough up some of that bread, baby girl.
Yeah. And I think, like, with your comments that you just made, I know that there have been times where I was in college and my parents would put money in my account, you know, but sometimes I would call home, and especially my dad, I would ask him for something and he would be like, oh, I don't got it. And I knew he had it. But I think what he was doing, looking back on it, was forcing me to be creative and be resourceful. Mm-hmm. Because then it turned into, oh, okay, eventually those calls start becoming less and less for me because I had figured it out. Yeah. And so there was a point where I had 2-3 jobs when I was working on campus, because I needed the money and I wanted to make sure, like, that my bills were paid, that I had money to go out to get food, whatever I wanted to do. Like, I had, you know, had just enough to get by.
Yeah.
And I had just enough to do the things that I was going to. And thank God, like, some of the things that people experienced in college, I never did. Like, you know, getting kicked out of their apartment, losing their cars, things like that. I thank God that was never part of my journey. If my cell phone was ever cut off, it's because my lazy ass never did get up to pay the bill. I always had the money. Having a cell phone cut off, like, oh, yeah, somebody probably just forgot. Like, but it wasn't a level of we just didn't have it, and so you going to be without. Like, no, that was something that, again, my parents made sure that the necessities were taken care of. Now, you need some extra stuff, you about to learn how to hustle and how to get it on your own. When somebody tells you no, like, how do you go about doing it? That's where the level of creativity comes in. Oh, let me go ahead and pick me up another skill, because I know I'm really good at this, and I know that I can provide a service to people. And so I'm grateful, like, for those experiences. But this is one, like, I'm thinking about privilege. This is one situation in particular that made me, like, laugh. And I talked about it briefly at the end of our last episode. And I said that we would share this, or I would share this. Living without a microwave. Which is something
I've done it, but I did it on purpose because I was going through my vegan lifestyle, and I didn't need one. I just put everything in the toaster oven.
We didn't have a toaster oven, so I'm talking like living as a child without a microwave.
Oh, no, I would have died.
It was probably, that's what I'm saying, and it felt like it was at least a month without us having a microwave, and it wasn't like people didn't have money to get the microwave replaced. I don't know why it was. I don't know, like, why we just was without a microwave. But it was at grandma's house, and that microwave, again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. She kept that microwave until it literally stopped heating up anything. We had to get a new one, but that felt like the longest time of all eternity without a microwave, because we're so used to
having one, just
going and heating up our food. You know, that is a level of privilege that people don't realize is a thing. Because I'm going again overseas to Jamaica, and we're cooking food outside. We cook our food outside, and you have to build a fire, like, to cook your meals. We're cooking a whole different way. So my grandma thought that was so funny. Like, we were tripping out about this microwave, and, you know, like, on the verge of tears. How am I going to heat up my food? How am I going to heat up these delicious wings that I got from KFC, and I really want to eat them after school? And so she showed us how to heat up food when you don't have another source. Just put it in the oven. Put it in the oven. Or she took, depending on what it was, she would put it put it on the stove top.
Put some water in the pan.
Yeah, put some water in the pan. She at one point she had took like a piece of foil and just covered it and steamed it. She was like, "This is how you heat up your food," and honestly, it tastes so much better. So having those little experiences. But
I also think what we don't realize too, as a society, especially at our age, when you start my great grandparents. My great grandmother is 98 and she's still alive. So we talk about a lot of this stuff. We have to realize too that even having an abundance of food and leftovers to be able to heat up for later is a very new concept.
Yeah.
Black people, Caribbean people, they had a lot of kids or a lot of mouths to feed and a little bit of food. There was no need to reheat food back then.
That is true.
There was no abundance or surplus of food. Our generation and society now, there's so much food waste because we overcook and overconsume. But back then, it wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, now it's me. I'm cooking a whole roast. You know what I'm saying? I can call people and say, come over and get some. It's a little bit left. It's going to be some left. But back then, they couldn't afford a whole roast. You know what I'm saying? They might have had a half of one, a few little pieces of this, a few little pieces of that, and 5 kids to feed off of it.
Yeah.
So even if one kid didn't eat all their food, there was another kid sitting at that table who wanted seconds. And they had to eat the rest of their, you know what I'm saying? It was no food to heat up later. It wasn't stuff to do later.
But another thing is, like, in a lot of cultures, especially the way that my dad grew up, because they lived on what would be considered like a compound. Everybody came to eat. Everybody ended up on groceries, whatever they were going to eat for the night. And so my dad, even until his very last moments here, he always cooked large quantities and big stupid big Dutch oven pans and pots, because that is how he grew up cooking. It's like he didn't know how to cook for just one person,
I'm still
because he
learning.
was not like he was just, that's not the way that he was taught how to cook. And you cooked for everybody, and everybody came to get a plate. And so maybe those people who came to get plates, they may have had their own quantities to share, like, or to save for later. But when it came to like the meal itself, you're right, like there was not much that was left for people to have
To do all
leftovers.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, but I was like, looking back on it, that's a situation where I look back and I'm grateful that I went without a microwave, because it really showed me that I honestly didn't need it. And now when I've had conversations with people, some of my friends in college that had similar situations, or maybe their microwave went out and they was just like, yeah, I ain't got no microwave. And I'm like, oh girl, like I'm about to come over. Like we can still, do what we need to do.
But
like,
see, I think
easy.
that's why I do well, and I don't mind traveling, especially when I go overseas, into different countries and different cultures, because I can easily transform and fit, you know what I'm saying, whatever the situation may be, like whatever the circumstance is. I think I'm very adaptable to stuff. But like you said, I got old, you know what I'm saying, Southern grandparents. My grandfather, like I said, he was 8 or 9 years old pushing buggies in a, you know what I'm saying, so he had to fend for himself. He had to learn how to do stuff. A lot of the stuff that I learned, all these quote unquote, now you get on TikTok and they're hacks, but when we was growing up, this was survival, you know what I'm saying, this was ghetto stuff that we did, you know what I'm saying, like this is how we learned to get around certain stuff.
It is just so interesting that they have become hacks, and they have become rather profitable for people that are making content, where it's like you said,
this is how black people live.
Exactly. That's just like the sardine plate situation we talked about. Like this is a part of our survival and how we were able to get by.
I've personally drank the Kool-Aid, and I can say that because, for example, I love oysters. I love seafood. Never growing up would I have ever been okay with eating an oyster out of a can. Like the way I grew up, it was like, this is poor people's food. Like I would have never. I done got on TikTok and got home and been doing my thing and got hungry, and I'm like, hold on, these people, like, you could put a can of canned oysters in a air fryer and put some cheese and all of this stuff on them, and they taste just like oysters Rockefeller. And I tried it, and now that's one of my things that if I need a quick little something to eat on my stomach, I want a little protein, but I don't want a lot of calories, I'll make that. But it's so crazy because 5 years and back ago, you would have never convinced me to go in no grocery store and buy a can of oysters. I was like, oh, this is some ghetto trailer park mess. And now here I am going to Kroger, buying 5 or 6 cans of them at a time because I want to keep them in my house.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, how things have changed. But it's just interesting to me, like some stuff that I see, be like, oh, I used to do that when we were younger.
Yeah.
Or, oh, my grandma taught me how to do that. So another thing that is interesting is growing up without cable. Like, we didn't have cable at Granny house for a while, and we did have, like, eventually we got cable and it was cool or whatever, but I was like, some stuff, like, people would say, oh,
I had ghetto parents.
When I was in elementary school,
cable box with the
oh, we had one too. That's what I'm saying. Like, we eventually got it. I wasn't gonna say how we got, but
I mean, it's statute pass. Okay, we had a little black box.
Well, my daddy is long and gone, and he's the one who came and hooked us up. So yeah, we had cable, and we had a little black box situation, and we was getting the hookup for free. But I'm grateful for those moments too, of being able to say, like, we didn't have cable at Granny's house, and Granny had a TV where you had to, like, switch the you had to turn it. It was no remote, like, to the TV for a while. And so when I'm going over my friends' houses and they got these big TVs with these satellite remotes, and I'm like, this is new, this is different. Oh yeah, we don't have this at my grandma's house. Oh, you watch what channel that come on? Oh, we don't have that channel at our house. I thought that was, like, interesting. But somebody posted something on TikTok recently. I want to say maybe a few days ago. I just saw it, like, yesterday. He said, can you imagine what life would have been like as a millennial if location tracking was a thing and you could set it up on our cell phones?
I think about that all the time. People always post that. Like, that would be totally, that it would just been crazy.
Yeah, we and Janelle and I were talking about how even just having a cell phone when we were young in elementary and middle school would have been very interesting
Well,
because
I
Janelle,
had one in middle school, but
we I had one in middle school too. I think I got my first cell phone in 6th grade. But I can remember how old Janelle was when she got her first cell phone. But she said that she would ride her bike from like Telegraph to
yeah,
Brightmoor because that's where her friends lived.
and nobody would
And she would be
know.
gone all day just on her bike. And she's like, it was a high level of peace that she got with like
Absolutely.
nobody being able to contact her unless she was at her friend's house, or and more than likely they were probably not even at their house. They probably just went and rode their bikes. So it would be real interesting if people could track our locations, especially in the era where people used to sneak out the house.
Yeah.
And I never snuck out the house because my mom had like this sixth sense of like, I just didn't want to ever end up in a situation where she would come and find me and know where I was at, and then I get embarrassed.
Well,
So I never tried to sneak out of the
I
house.
never snuck out because my stepdad used to. Well, his career, he did electronics and security installation. So we always had a little damn buzzer on the door, like when you open the door, that beep beep. Like you gonna know when somebody walk in the front door, side door. But I will be honest, I had no reason to sneak out. My mama didn't care. Like, and I don't mean that to say that she was a negligent parent, but as a parent, you know your children.
Yeah.
I don't think my brother had the same. I had to ask my brother. I don't think he had the same luxury of doing what I did because my mama trusted him on a different level. But I will say, my mama, I could literally, especially during the summer, when we were out of school for the summer, my mama had a rule. Long as she knew where I was at and where I was with, I could stay out as long as I had my key. I used to stay out during the summertime to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, especially when I was in like high school, 9th, 10th grade. I used to stay out. Like we would be in the neighborhood playing. We might be in front of the house. Like we could be in my backyard. We might be in somebody else's driveway. We would be wherever, but long as she knew where I was, who I was with, and where I was going to be, she was okay with that. Long as I had a key. My mama's whole thing is if you going to stay out late, like adults do or like grown-ups do, grown-ups let themselves in the house. If you don't have a key and you can't get in the house, then you stuck. And that was a level of responsibility. And I can count on one hand how many times I've lost house keys as an adult or just in general, because that's how I grew up. My mama was like, do whatever you gonna do, but you better be able to get back in the house. And if you can't get back in the house, that's gonna be another problem. So I learned, even when I started driving and I was in school, my mama was, you want to stay home today? Cool, you stay home today. And you know what stopped making me skip school? When she started realizing I was skipping school and she was leaving me list of what you about to do while you at home. If you want to stay home today, you're free to stay home. But guess what? You're going to clean the kitchen. My mama had it. She was infamous for making a nigga vacuum the steps. And this was back before Dyson vacuum cleaner. So imagine carrying a heavy ass Eureka or Hoover up and down some steps with a hand attachment in your hand. And my mama had these old school steps where she had like a runner going down the steps, but she had those nice metal bars to hold the runner down. Mm-hmm. So you used to have to roll the bars around and get up under there to get this. And my mama was going to come home and check. And so that's why I'm so anal about how things are clean now, because my mama was like that when I was growing up. But not only that is my mama was teaching me as an adult, when you have an off day, you don't have no off day. When you are off of work, you either cleaning up or going to the doctor. You know what I'm saying? So now that's why it be so funny to me when people be like, oh, you off today? I be like, why? Because that don't mean you about to work me. Like, right. But my mama didn't play that. If you going to stay home from school, you going to do some kind of work. You don't want to go to school. You don't want to do no school work. You going to do some work at home. And so I stopped skipping school because I was like, oh, she about to make me work. I might as well go to school. And so my mom was very big on, like, obviously, like, reverse psychology. It was, you want to go here, I'll let you go, but you're responsible for everything. Like, I didn't go to the high school I went to high school I was supposed to go to because I tested in it because it was a magnet program. But that wasn't the school zone for my district. I had a hard time waking up when I was a kid. Well, I still do, but when I was younger, I hated to wake up. And my mama told me, you get too many absences and they kick your ass out of this school because you're not going, that's on you. I'm not helping you get back in. Do you think I was ever late to school after that? My mama was like, no. And that's why I'm one of those people that I just don't agree with people not having accountability or not having discipline, because I was able to self-discipline myself as a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like, my parents didn't force me to do nothing. My mama then got up and went to work. And she was like, you on your own getting to school every day. I had to get up and go to school every day. And that's why I was okay with getting up and going to work and doing other stuff as I became an adult, because that's how I was raised. Like,
yeah,
with freedom, but with freedom becomes with discipline and responsibility.
that is true. I had a level of freedom that was similar. Like, my mom definitely trusted me to make responsible decisions, but she also raised me to know that if you lie to me, then that's gonna be your ass, essentially. Yep. Like, you breach the trust that I have for you. And discipline was a thing, and my getting discipline in my household was a thing. So that was something that I was just always mindful of, and I never wanted to cross those boundaries or feel like I was crossing those boundaries. But as far as like going out and making friends and things like that, my mom definitely wanted me to be more social than I was. I just wasn't. Like, and to this day, like, I'm pretty social, but on a personal level, like, again, very much a homebody, very much somebody that stays in my zone, in my comfort zone. And I would step outside of my comfort zone for good reason. Yeah. But I've never been the life of the party and have a bunch of people around me, et cetera, because that's just not part of my design, I guess. So it's real interesting. I'm glad that we could have this conversation today, and I hope that this truly resonates with some of our listeners in terms of the things that we've talked about. Hopefully you all have listened and can relate to some of our stories and our upbringings and similarities with our upbringings. Definitely send us a note. Like, let us know. Share your interesting stories about your childhood, growing up, any lessons that come to mind when listening to this episode. And you can send them to thesoulfulstir@gmail.com. Do we have anything for the sacred sanctuary?
No, we don't have anything.
The sacred sanctuary. No, that's something
But I
else.
will say, please send us your childhood confessions.
The sanctuary school.
Because one of the things that me and my brother do, we aggravate my mama when we talk about stuff that we did as a kid that she don't know about. Because now it's like, what you gonna do? You gonna whoop me?
Yeah,
like I was really flabbergasted when my brother told me and my mama that he used to pee in a trash can when he was little. Because he didn't want to get out the bed. He said he was playing video games in his room, and he didn't want to, like, when he had to go to the bathroom, if he didn't want to stop playing the game, he said he would just pee in the trash can. So
that is high level laziness.
But in his defense, we would have never known. Like, we never knew, because his responsibility in the house was taking out the trash. He had to go around. My mama made him take out the trash, like, of all the rooms upstairs, and he was responsible for the trash. So he said he would just clean the trash can out. He would just pee in the trash. And we never knew it because he was the one in his room with the trash. But yes, like, me and my mama were so disgusted. We were like, really? Like, you really used to pee in the trash? Because you're a lazy kid.
No, absolutely not.
Like, you're a lazy ass kid. And guess what? His room to the trash can was like, his bedroom to the bathroom was all of like 10 feet. If that. Like, you walk out of his room, if you make a left, there's a linen closet in the next door. The very next door that was right next to it was the bathroom. Literally like 5 steps to the bathroom.
Yeah, that would have, yeah.
I told my mama she still should have punched the shit out of my brother when he told her that. Like, 25 years old, because knocked the shit out of him. Because, sir, why would you tell me that?
Yeah, because
why would you do it?
Why would you do that?
And then just keep it to yourself at this point, because I don't even want to know.
We could have went our
Every
whole
time
life.
I think about that, I'd be like, my brother is like slow. Like, I'd be like, Mama, what was you doing? Like, while you was pregnant with him, like, what happened? Where did you drop the ball? Because he don't have good sense.
Yeah, why he don't have good sense? Oh man, that is so funny.
So yes, if you used to pee in a trash can, please.
We want to know. We want to hear about it. If you used to pee in a trash can, yes, absolutely. Tell us. Send it to our Gmail. Again, follow us on everything at The Soulful Stir. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Drop us a comment. Like, subscribe, share with your cousins, your brothers, your aunts, uncles, your parents. If you find this podcast fruitful, we really appreciate every stream and listen, every comment. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been another one from The Soulful Stir.
We'll catch y'all next week.
Yep, next week for sure.